Welcome to Suffolk Matters, where all of Suffolk County meets the men and women of Suffolk AME. News, opinions, and insights you won't hear anywhere else.
Welcome to another edition of Suffolk Matters on Walk 97.5 and 94.3 The Shark, where Suffolk County meets the men and women of Suffolk AME. News and views you can't hear anywhere else.
Good morning to our Suffolk Matters listeners. I'm Ryan McGarry, filling in for our host, President Dan Leveler. With us today is Lizbeth Carillo, the Hispanic Community Liaison in the Suffolk County Police Department, and also the newest member of the Village of Patchogue Board. Lizbeth, thank you so much for joining us, and good morning.
Thank you so much for the invitation. Good morning, everyone. I'm happy to be here and just speaking to the community and you. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Oh, of course. We're happy to have you here. We have a lot to talk about, a lot of exciting things to get to today. As the newest member of the Patchogue Village Board, I know we want to talk about some exciting initiatives going on over there. But before we get to all that, as an AME member, I want to talk about your role in the county, your role as a union member. So in your county role as a liaison to the Hispanic community and for the police department of the county, what does that work entail? How long have you been doing it?
So I've been doing it for about 3 years and a half. I work there 17.5 hours weekly. And it's really about connecting the community with the police department and informing the community. And why it's so important, it's because that's how we can reduce crime. That's how we can help the community that does not know, in a way, the laws. We can help them understand the laws. And that helps everyone, not just the Hispanic community, but it helps everyone for them to be informed and for them to respect the rules or laws, or even to protect themselves from being victims. So it's very, very important to keep them updated.
Yeah, of course. And that last point you made is something that in my work prior to coming to AME, when I was with the county, is something we always were focused on. So it's great to know that the county has a committed and dedicated liaison, yourself, filling that role. But that was that so many people within the Hispanic community who fall victims to crime are afraid to come forward and actually report the crime, to protect themselves, protect their families, protect their neighborhoods, because they're afraid that the system might work against them. So I know part of your work is to alleviate some of those fears. Yes,
keep them informed. And I think there's also, there's amazing police officers, incredible police officers that are protecting us. And it's just not fair just to say, oh, everyone is racist or everyone is doing this. So it's really about educating our community and also educating the police department or the officers as well of our culture, of the Hispanic culture. So one thing that was a little bit that I was not shocked, but in a way, just surprised with the question was, an officer said, Liz, but they never look at me in my eyes. It's like they're hiding something. And no, and part of the culture is showing respect. They were showing respect when they're not looking at them in the eyes. So it's a little bit of teaching about culture, but also the culture of the police department and also culture of the Hispanic community.
Of course, the teaching goes both ways. Yeah. And you're absolutely right, singing the praises of our brothers and sisters in the PBA and all the sacrifices the men and women of the police department make keeping our community safe. But then it's so important for the public to know that behind the uniform that we see out on the street and admire the great work that they're doing is this amazing civilian support staff, and that's who AME represents in part. Yeah. You being a member in your role, but of course we also have our 911 dispatchers who we just got our first responder status for. Nice. So there's a lot of amazing folks on the civilian side of the police department. And beyond just your role as a community liaison, to what extent working in the police department do you see how the civilian staff supports and helps achieve the goals of the police department?
Well, I think they go hand in hand, right there with everything, with just on a daily things to do. For instance, our secretaries are so important. So it's our secretaries, our dispatchers. Everyone is working together. And that's the most important thing. Working together, we can achieve so many more things. And civilians, absolutely. I'm a civilian, but so many the whole department is a lot civilians where I work.
It's a cohesive unit,
yes.
right? We have our uniformed officers and it's a civilian support staff behind them. And then, of course, even AME members on the other side of law enforcement when it gets to the district attorney's office or the medical examiner's office. We provide tremendous amounts of support over there. But, yeah, moving on beyond, because you mentioned you're part-time over in the county in the police department, 17 and a half hours. You wear a lot of hats. You're also a community leader and advocate in Patchogue. You're the outreach director for St. Francis de Sales. Tell me a little bit about that experience, that role, what it is you guys do for the community.
Yes, absolutely. But I just want to say thank you to the union. You guys have been so supportive to me, to so many people. So thank you so much for always supporting us and guiding us and teaching us also, because it's with everything. So thank you so much.
No, thank you for that. We appreciate you and all of our members. And I know Dan Leveler and our executive board takes their roles very seriously in representing our members' needs. So thank you so much.
Thank you. So in St. Francis de Sales Outreach, I'm the director for the food pantry. So it's food pantry, assistance with rental arrears, assistance with bills if they are in need. During COVID, it was very, very hard. And actually, that's how we met.
Yes, yeah. I was going to get to that. Yeah, so we met in the height of COVID. We didn't know each other, and you had already been a member and working in the police department, but our paths never crossed. And then COVID hit, right? And our entire world was changed. Our community was changed. And I remember it well when folks were being asked to stay home and stay safe for good reason. You know, I got the call from the village hall. They had activated their COAD unit, their community organizations activated in disaster program, and asked me to get involved and try to help recruit volunteers. And that's where we first met, because one of the volunteer jobs was we were packaging food with St. Francis de Sales and yourself, bringing that food to either folks who had contracted COVID and couldn't leave their homes, or even more importantly, just folks that were already homebound and now in their newfound world of COVID, some of the resources that they relied on, they couldn't rely on anymore. I mean, everyone now, I think, I don't want to say forgets, but they certainly don't remember to what extent everyone stayed home and sheltered. It was one of the, I've been involved in labor unions and government, and organizing people is something I've done for 20 years. And I don't think I've had a harder time trying to organize volunteers to come out than those first few months of COVID. But we were lucky to get to work with you. Your leadership was outstanding at St. Francis. And then we did get some volunteers I want to just recognize, if you wouldn't mind, that were great through the fire department. My friend Jim Griffiths and Kevin Brennan came out. To this day, they talk about what a rewarding experience it was working with you and getting to know your volunteers and your community outreach folks. And then also a guy I think deserves a lot of credit is Nick Harding from the Kiwanis Club. Here he didn't know how his income was going to be affected. He was a landscaper. It's spring cleanup time, March of 2020 to the summer. So that's his prime season, but there was a shortage of work. And instead of worrying about himself, he came to us. He brought his huge landscaping box truck.
I remember.
He's paying for his gas. He's doing runs to Long Island Cares to get, the bulk of the food. We were unloading it and packaging it up and bringing it to different families throughout the greater Patchogue region, not just Patchogue Village, but in the East Patchogue, into North Patchogue, and in the whole region. So, and this is what you do day in and day out. So I don't want to take that away from you.
No.
I was honored and appreciated the opportunity just to work the few months that we worked together there. But you do this every single day, all year round. Yeah. So what are the year-round needs of the community that you are addressing?
So, for instance, we do Thanksgiving meals, from everything, the turkey to everything they will need. For them to have a nice meal during Thanksgiving. And then we also do that in Christmas. We also provide toys. But then it's day-to-day necessities. I mean, certain people are in need. and we are there to provide. And my volunteers, I am not the one, I cannot get full credit. My volunteers are amazing. My volunteers, some volunteers are in their 80s, and they're volunteering and picking up those bags. So it's incredible, and I'm so thankful for all of them. During COVID, it was very scary. It was a time that no one knew what was going to happen. And we were left with, we would have this big truck coming, and the same day, all the food would be gone. So it was a very scary, sad moment of seeing so many people hungry, so many people during COVID having COVID, delivering the food there. Now, thankfully, we are in a better place right now, thank God. But there is still a need. We still provide, but the need is from rental arrears, bills. We take the job very seriously, so it's really to assist the community that truly needs it, that truly, truly needs it. So we will, it's asking questions, it's teaching them how to budget sometimes. It's sometimes even making them think of a dream. It's a lady, she was going to be homeless. She got sick 2 weeks. 2 weeks. She went to the hospital, and she was facing eviction. But she was making over $27 an hour, and she makes like 20 hours of overtime. So she was making so much money, but those 2 weeks and the car rental and this, and it was just so hard. And I asked her, have you ever thought of buying a home? And she never thought she could. Never. Like it was nothing that she ever thought that was something possible. She went, she fixed her credit, and then she was in the process of buying a home. So it's really about all those little things.
That's amazing. Yeah, and it's amazing, too, when you put that in that perspective, too, right? That everyone feels comfortable when the paycheck's coming in, but so many of us and so many of our community members are just one paycheck away from not being able to make ends meet and not being able to maintain the lifestyle that their family deserves. And you see that firsthand, and not only do you witness it, but you with your volunteers are trying to help resolve these issues, and you're doing a fantastic job at that.
Thank you, Ryan.
And you brought up your volunteers, and some of them being in their 80s and still just hard at work for their community. And I'm reminded of those days in the St. Francis gym, packing the boxes before making the deliveries. And that was the population we wanted to say thank you, but no, go home. You are the most at-risk population. You're an elderly,
absolutely
elderly folks. You're in your 80s, and they didn't want to hear it. They did not want to hear it. They wanted to say, "No, I'll see you tomorrow." And what more can I do? Yeah. So it was just fantastic to see, and also the concept of the community coming together that you mentioned. It was really beautiful. I'm reminded also of Dave from Gallo, a great restaurant in town, who, again, restaurateurs at this point, they didn't know grant money was coming in. They didn't know relief money was coming in. So a lot of them were closing their doors, worried about their own families. And Dave opened up his restaurant, brought in staff, and they made trays of food that were then made up into smaller hot meals. So not only were we getting the non-perishables and the fresh produce that you were securing through Long Island Cares,
yes,
right? We were able to then also deliver hot, fresh, prepared meals thanks to Dave and Gallo and the whole community coming together.
It was amazing. And Island Harvest as well.
Island Harvest. I knew Island Harvest was also a part of it, and that's great. And then our paths crossed again. Obviously COVID, we're just coming out of it, but when restrictions were loosening a little bit, I was moved from Community Development Board in Patchogue over to the Zoning Board, and you were already a member, and we got to see each other a little bit maskless for a change because it was no longer, we were in that part of the pandemic. I'm curious, how did you get involved in the zoning board in the first place? Because I think that's a story, is it not?
Oh, yes. So during Hurricane Sandy, my mother's house was completely destroyed, and we had to rebuild. And for years, my parents always wanted to have a second floor. So because our house was very tiny, that whole block is very tiny. So we decided to build and ask for a second floor, which was fine. they said that we are able to. But when we were trying to build, certain neighbors started coming out saying complete lies. They were, they were stereotyping us, unfortunately, because it was so extreme that they said someone will live under, a table, our table where we eat. So extreme that we're going to rent the place out so much, and we shouldn't have to a second floor. We should only have our tiny house. That's it. Because if not, we're going to bring more people. And we do have a lot of family members during Christmas time and Thanksgiving.
Those are times for family.
We do have a big gathering. We love to celebrate. We're a big family. And then friends and everything else, but not on a daily basis, not on a monthly basis. It's really on birthdays or Christmas, Thanksgiving. So it was very insulting to hear those things. But also it was very hard for us to be denied. I believe we were denied 3 times of our plans. Every time it was just being denied for other things. Maybe we did it too big or the window. The window didn't fit the neighborhood. But at the same time, it was because of the neighbors also complaining that made it so much easier. So one gentleman started lying again. My mom, she doesn't like any problems. And she was like, every time we would go, every time she would just go next to me and say, "You better not say a word. Do you hear me?" So she warned me that day, and he continued lying and lying and lying. And I had enough. And I just stood up and said, "Carol, can you write everything?" And I looked at him and I said, "Can you write everything this gentleman is saying? Because tomorrow I'm taking you to court for defamation of character."
Wow.
And then he said, "Whoa." And then the board kind of yelled also like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, we don't want threats." I said, "I'm not doing a threat. But this is very insulting because my family worked their butt off to raise me in a house where they could have rented." Absolutely. In the 90s, it was very popular to rent and sub-rent and everything else. But my family didn't because they wanted to protect me because I was there by myself. So for others to say that my father, my mom used to rent, it was a lie. And my parents did it with a lot of sacrifice to protect me. And just to say those lies were very hurtful for me. I also asked if, this was happening, why didn't you make complaints then?
Right.
One lady said, "Oh, I didn't want to be involved." You didn't want to be involved then, but now you're, after, so many years, 20 years, you're saying these things. Or not even 20. I think it was like 10, 15. So,
But yeah, the fact that you stood up for the truth and the way you conducted yourself obviously left an impression on either the zoning board members or the chairman or the mayor himself, because here you had to advocate against outright lies against you and your family as an applicant to the zoning board. And then you parlayed that into a position where you could, much like you do for the county, and again, for our listeners, our guest this week is Lizbeth Carillo. She's a Hispanic community liaison for the police department, also a Village of Patchogue trustee. And right now we're discussing how she, before her Village of trusteeship, she was a member of the zoning board. Then how did you become an advocate and also almost a liaison for Hispanic applicants on the zoning board?
Being a director in St. Francis de Sales, I had one gentleman that came and complained about the police department, saying they're racist, they do not want to help me fill out documents, this, that. And I would say, no, they're not racist. I've never had that experience, especially in the 5th precinct. I haven't had that experience. You should go back. They should do it. Maybe there was a misunderstanding. No, they don't want to do it, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Now, a woman comes in and starts saying that the police is racist, that she went and asked to make a report. They denied her. And again, I'm like, no, there must have been a misunderstanding. The third gentleman, this was like within a week and a half, 2 weeks. The third gentleman comes and says, he comes all beat up, asking for food. And I ask him, can I told him that he should make a report. And he said, no, I don't trust the police. I don't want nothing with the police. And I'm like, well, someone just beat you up, took your money. You should go. No, I'm not. So I tried to convince him, and nothing. And again, it was the 5th precinct. And coincidentally, the Inspector Silva had this meet and greet with the 5th precinct officers and inspector at the library.
Yeah, great way to engage with the community. And
yes. So I went there because I was like, why is the community saying this? Now it's not one person, now it's going to be a couple of community members that have this concern. So I met the inspector, I introduced myself, and I said, that the community is having these trust issues, misunderstandings, and he said he was going through the same thing, that he was having challenges. And I asked if I can help him volunteer, and we can go to different houses. Inspector Silva was incredible. He went with me to basements of homes without knowing if someone,
of course.
He didn't even know me that well, and he trusted me. And we went to basements to talk to, there's local leaders in our community, minority communities. There's always like this local leader. And they're not famous or in organizations, but it's really about we trust that person. So we identified local leaders that would bring like 20 people to their homes or to the businesses. We went to a salon. And we discussed their concerns. And there was a lot of concerns. And we found out a lot of things, especially men being, can I say jumped?
Yeah.
So, Hispanic males being jumped in certain streets because of lighting, because they're carrying cash, because possibly they're drinking and they know their weaknesses, and that's when they're getting abused.
And because those who are preying on that population
absolutely
feel emboldened or confident that this segment of the population isn't going to call the police, so there's no repercussions.
And they don't.
And obviously, Patchogue has come a long way since the tragic incident of Marcelo Lucero. But what you're referring to, that's exactly. That's just because, thankfully, we've come a long way and progressed as a community doesn't mean that doesn't still exist. And you're doing some great work, and we can't thank you enough for the work you do there. But I do want to get to, before we run out of time, now you are the newest member of the Patchogue Board. You're an AME member in your day job, but now
thank you.
You're the newest member of the Village of Patchogue Board, and actually the first Hispanic trustee for the Village of Patchogue in its history, which is incredible because it's a sizable population in Patchogue. It's close to, do you know the percentage?
It's a little bit over 30%.
That's what I thought.
That's what I heard.
It's about 30%. So one of the first things that you wanted to achieve when you came in was pedestrian safety, and you've only been on the board a few months, right? Yes. So tell me about this VEST program and this pedestrian safety program that you, the mayor, Trustee Keys, I know there were others, were all involved with. And
absolutely, it was a group effort. Again, Trustee Keys started even prior to me starting this. Myself becoming the newest trustee, he already had a couple of conversations in the library with Marianne Russo. Shout out to Marianne Russo. I mean, she is incredible. And so as a team, we started thinking of different ideas, how we can assist the community. And one of the things is that they're not being seen at nighttime. So together, we thought about vests. We thought about little blinking lights that maybe someone can wear, or even like the library had a great idea of, teaching the women how to sew. Sorry, my Spanish.
You're fine.
So the library had a great idea of teaching the women how to sew things for their husbands so they can be seen at nighttime. Reflective tape for the men. So it was just a group effort. The mayor, I love the mayor. He started reaching out to amazing companies, unions, things to you and the union.
Of course, yeah, no, that you're absolutely right. The mayor, Mayor Paul Pontieri, amazing guy, responsible for a lot of that transformation in Patchogue that we were talking about earlier. But he reached out to us at AME, to President Leveler and myself. We committed to donating over 100 vests to help keep the pedestrians safe. Senator Mario Matera, who doesn't even represent the Patchogue area, through his connections where he came from the Plumbers Local 200. The plumbers donated vests.
It was huge. It was a beautiful thing to see Republicans, independents, the Democrats, different unions just collaborating. Good.
Yeah, for the greater good,
Yes.
and to keep people safe. And this is a Band-Aid solution, right? I know that you and the mayor, the long-term goal is to make the community, and we can get a little bit to some other priorities, but to make the community more walkable and pedestrian friendly. And on the path to progress there, what's the short-term solution? Let's keep our pedestrians visible and safe while we make the actual infrastructure safer. So with that, what are some of the other priority initiatives you're definitely looking to get done, or you and your team at the village are trying to get done?
Working with this team, and just I knew them before, but I mean, just seeing all their dedication to the village inside and closed doors is amazing. Everyone has different goals. So, for instance, everyone has different goals, but everyone works together and sees it together and supports each other. So I think that's really important for us to continue growing. We always need that type of team to really unite and work together. So, for instance, one of the goals as a team, they want to see more Patchogue to be very pedestrian, for the community to start maybe using. There's different goals of making it popular to use bikes, making it more walkable, making it friendly to be a walkable town.
Awesome. Yeah, and I know one of the mayor's other priorities is that I'm excited about. I actually was fortunate enough to have some writing published in the Advance this past week in favor of infrastructure investment, and the mayor is committed to continuing to expand sewer access to the south of Main Street neighborhoods, as well as to the college on Sunrise Highway, which is tremendous. I mean, that commitment creates jobs, and usually good union-paying jobs that people can raise a family on. And then it's also got the benefit of improving our water quality. That's our drinking water. It's our quality of life here on an island, right? We want to be able to enjoy our beaches. And that doesn't happen without sewer infrastructure, especially in neighborhoods like Patchogue, where we're so close to the water, on the water table. If everyone just is on cesspools, every time we get a heavy rain, where do we think that waste is going? So it's a great effort there. And then he also, I think you guys are looking to revitalize Shorefront Park and make our...
Yes. And that's one of the projects for Trustee Keys, Joe Keys.
We love Trustee Keys, a former union member himself. He was a railroad worker, I believe.
Yes, he's all of them. He's a funny guy. I've learned that about him. He's always
Good
the funny guy.
Humor,
yes.
Right?
So he's really focused in that project, as well as the solar panels that we are having all over town. In a way, the theater, in the village itself, the village building.
Yeah, the theater is a great resource.
Yes.
It's the anchor of the revitalization effort from 10 years ago, 15 years ago, actually, yeah.
It's going to save so much money. And they're also thinking of different, there are so many projects right now. It's incredible. I just came to a time where I can learn a lot from them and continue putting a little bit of knowledge and continue learning and being part of whatever it can make the village continue growing and being this successful town and friendly town and safe town, right? Because that's the most important thing. Trustee Susan, she's doing everything in technology. I mean, the technology we are having our meetings through Zoom now. All that was because of her.
Trustee Brinkman, yes. And she
Trustee
and I work
Brinkman.
together on the community development board. She's a great advocate for the community.
We have different areas, so it's more of the parks, the technology, it's it's everyone collaborating with everyone. So it's very nice.
No, and Patchogue has become, the model for the rest of the county that I don't know if all of our fellow Patchogue residents recognize as much as we may see it in our roles in the county. But every time a downtown is looking to revitalize itself or,
Oh, yes.
Address blight or empty storefronts, it's always
They look
Patchogue
at
that's
that.
referred to as the shining example.
Mm-hmm.
And then that is a testament. I know you're the newest addition to the team and only been on the board a few months, but to your team's work over the past 15 years.
Absolutely.
So I have to give you guys credit there. And one of the things we really want to remind folks is that Patchogue Village elections are only a little bit away, a week and a half away, March
Yes.
15th. So who can vote in this election? How do you vote?
Patchogue, the village residents, please go out and vote. Usually there's a little bit of a turnout. I would love to see a huge turnout. Our vote is our voice. It's so important to vote for who you believe in, what you want to see. So it's March 15th. Please go and vote. We're all for election, myself included. But we have Trustee Keys, we have Trustee Brickerman, we have Trustee McAfee, we have myself and the judge.
Judge Patricia Romero, yes, is up as well. It's an election. You guys are all part of Mayor Pontieri's team. So for our listeners who live in Patchogue or know folks who do live in Patchogue,
Absolutely.
no matter who they're voting for, obviously we're a little biased with our AME member on the board there, but we would love to see everybody get out and vote, exercise their right, commit themselves to their civic duty, and vote on March 15th in the village elections. That's an election that unfortunately gets overlooked. People think elections in November,
That's
March
right.
15th. It's coming up.
Go
Patchogue
vote.
Village. So again, Ryan McGarry filling in for our normal host, our president, Daniel Leveler of AME. Had the pleasure of being joined today by Lizbeth Carillo, our Hispanic community liaison for the police department, a proud AME member, and Patchogue Village Board's newest trustee. So thank you so much for coming in this morning.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. Thank you for everyone for listening. I really, really appreciate it. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Liz. And to our listeners, you'll hear back from President Leveler next week right here on Suffolk Matters. Thank you.